Thank you, members. If you'd all like to... no, so we do this... we actually stand up for this, but don't we? So I'd like to welcome the Mayor's Chaplain, the Reverend Helena Dalpino, who will say prayers. Sorry about that.
Good evening, everyone. Lovely to see you all again. I hope you're well. And thank you once again for all you do for this city and its surrounding villages. Let us pray. Gracious God, we give thanks for our City Council, its elected members, officers and staff. We pray for the health of those who serve others. May they be well in body, mind and spirit, and be surrounded by supportive friends and colleagues. Recognising the crucial role of nature in our health and well-being, we pray for the peace and protection of the natural environment, for the Tiny Forest Project and all rewilding projects seeking to preserve, maintain and develop the beauty and biodiversity of our local area. We pray for the upcoming local elections and all candidates involved in the campaign. May a spirit of mutual respect prevail between candidates and with the local electorate. We give thanks for our outgoing youth MP, Eva, for her enthusiasm, hard work and vision. And we pray that our new youth MPs, Danielle and Pranav, will receive the encouragement and support they need to enjoy their learning. Recognising tonight the crucial role of the Law and Governance Department here at the Council, we pray for its staff and for their work to bear fruit, for the integrity of this city and our local administration. May a spirit of generosity rule in our hearts, so that all gathered here tonight build hope for the future and act in love for this beautiful place, whose flourishing we are entrusted with. Amen.
Thank you. If everyone would like to take their seats now, please. Right. If people could to take their seats, then we'll get going. Hang on. Right, okay. So I'd like to give a warm welcome to all councillors, officers, those in the public gallery and also those watching on the live stream. I'll now hand over to Rachel Edwards, our Head of Constitutional Services, to go through some housekeeping points.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Please can you ensure that all mobile phones are set to silent? In the event of an evacuation, please exit through the doors on both sides of the chamber and follow the council staff to the assembly point. As per normal rules, if you wish to speak, please ensure that you raise your hand and you'll be invited to address the meeting. The Mayor has confirmed that he is happy for members to stand or remain seated when addressing the chamber. All votes will be taken via the electronic voting system. If a recorded vote is requested, this will be taken in the normal way. There is your points document on your desk. If you wish to raise a point and address the Mayor accordingly, please stating the point, so raise the pink document. Finally, I'd like to remind members that this meeting is being live streamed, so please ensure that when you speak, you are using your microphone. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. And we now move to agenda item 1, and I'd like to ask the Interim Director of Legal and Governance if there's any apologies been submitted.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There are apologies from Councillors Barkham, Asif and Tyler.
Thank you. Now I'd like to move to agenda item 2. Are there any declarations of interest from members or from officers which are not already recorded separately on their individual register of interest? So anybody got any other interest to declare? I'm not seeing any, so that's fine. So we now move to agenda item 3. I'd like to move approval of the minutes of the last full council meeting, which was held on the 21st of February 2024. Do I have a seconder for that?
Happy to second, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Farouk. If there's no objection, I'll take the minutes as being agreed. I'm not seeing an objection, so the minutes are agreed. So we now move to item 4, which is the Mayor's announcement. As usual, a full list of the engagements undertaken by the mayoral team since the last full council can be found attached to the full council agenda on the City Council website. So I'd just like to highlight a few points. Probably the most important event that we attended in the last month was the installation of the Reverend Debbie Sellin as the new Bishop of Peterborough. It's a significant event for Peterborough as Debbie becomes the first woman to hold the post of Bishop of Peterborough. It's also important for me personally as one of the things that first got me active in the Church of England back in the 80s was the campaign to allow women first to be ordained as priests, and we've come an awful long way since then. Our mayoral fundraising events have continued. We had a very successful Mayor's Curry Night at the Gurkha Durbar, kindly organised by former Councillor Ansar Ali, which raised nearly £1,000 for my charities. And last week we had a chocolate bingo at the Town Hall, which raised around about £400. Now, coming up, we've got a curry night at Maharani's at Hampton Hargate on Sunday, March the 24th. So that's next Sunday, beginning at 5:30. And that's kindly coordinated by our council leader, Mohammed Farouk. I actually checked on the numbers signing up for that, and we could do with a few more people. So can I put in a plea for both officers and councillors? I appreciate, Sunday's a bit busy day for a lot of people, but the curries at Maharani's are normally really good, and so please get in touch with the Mayor's office if you'd like to come to that. So then moving forward to April the 13th, we're organising a John Clare countryside walk and also a tour of St Kynaberg's Church in Castor, and that's organised by Sue McGill, who's a member of my charities committee, who I think is here in the chamber this evening, or she was certainly going to be. And then on the 14th of April, we've got a sponsored cycle ride. It's taking place in Ferry Meadows, which is organised by PACT. Now, I'd be particularly keen if any councillors would like to take part in the sponsored cycle ride. I'm going to participate in it. It's only a 15-kilometre ride, so we're not asking you to do a massive amount, but it should be a really enjoyable occasion. And finally, we have the culmination of my mayoral term, which is the Mayor's Ball at the Holiday Inn Hotel on Saturday, the 18th of May, and tickets are now on sale for that. At the full council meeting back in February, group leaders spoke in glowing terms about the work of our former youth MP, Ava Woods, who's just completed her 2-year term, and as Helena mentioned in the prayers, 2 new youth MPs for Peterborough were chosen last week to replace her. And it's the fact that that the population of young people in Peterborough has grown so significantly that we now have 2 youth MPs. I've actually worked quite closely with Ava, partly because our terms have actually overlapped. Her 2-year term as youth MP overlapped with my terms as Deputy Mayor and Mayor. And in fact, I actually once commented that we often seem to be attending the same events at the same time, and that became a bit of a standing joke between us. I worked particularly with Ava on a small project to promote through social media the different roles undertaken by the Mayor of Peterborough. We actually identified 4 different roles and we produced a film clip on each of them. They're available on social media. I'd like to commend Ava particularly because she's been a tireless champion for all young people in Peterborough and has taken on a whole range of different projects to engage with young people and put their interests forward. So on behalf of I'm sure I speak on behalf of the whole council when I'd like to thank Ava for her service, and I'd like her to come to the front so we can make a small presentation to her. So that concludes the announcements. Right, we now move to agenda item 5, announcements from the leader. Councillor Farouk, I understand you wish to make some announcements, so you have up to 5 minutes to put your announcements forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. May I start tonight with wishing my colleagues here and all the residents in Peterborough Ramadan Mubarak, who are observing Ramadan. Can I take also opportunity to congratulate Daniel Debo and Pranav Agarwal, who were recently elected to represent the city as our youth MPs. Daniel is 15 and a pupil at Stangrown Academy, and Pranav is 13 and attends the King's School. I'm sure their friends and family are very proud of them, and rightly so. We were privileged to attend the meeting here last week or 2 weeks ago. They were both elected at an event in Town Hall in a night which 9,000 votes from young people across the city were cast. As fantastic results. A big well done to all the other candidates too, who represented themselves and their schools commendably. It's the first time we've had 2 youth MPs, and that's because of the growth in the number of young people living in the city in the past 2 years. I wish Danielle and Pranav best of luck on the night and now, and I look forward to working with them in the near future. Moving on, I'm pleased to announce that we've been successful in securing £100,000 from the second round of the government's Digital Planning Improvement Fund. The money will be specifically directed towards upskilling officers and enabling delivery of our digitisation agenda within the planning service. We will be concentrating on areas including tree protection orders, Article 4 direction, conservation areas and listed buildings to enable more people to be able to self-serve and access information outside of traditional office hours. In further good news, Mr. Mayor, last week we announced that proposal to transform Peterborough train station has received outline business case approval by the government. If anyone needed the proof that this project is progressing as planned, then here it is. Lots of hard work has gone into getting into this stage, and we are excited to continue to work towards full business case submission later in the year, where a public consultation will also take place, asking people for their views on the plans, accessibility, and this project will provide significant transformation for residents, businesses and visitors to Peterborough who access the city via the station. We cannot wait for spades to go into the ground. Remaining within our city centre, I would like to remind you all that you have until Sunday to complete our survey about Cathedral Square and the Guildhall. One of my priorities to create an improved vision for Guildhall, one of the jewels in our city centre crown, and Cathedral Square as a whole. More than 1,000 people, Mr. Mayor, have already had their say, and we hope many more will do so as well before the survey closes on Sunday. It's available on social media channels, or you can request a paper copy. We are currently undertaking a viability assessment to explore possible future uses for the Guildhall before we prepare a business case for the potential works. We can make more of this fantastic building, and it is my mission to do so. I'm pleased to confirm that we will be able to continue offering school holiday supermarket vouchers to eligible families following confirmation from the government that the Household Support Fund has been extended for further 6 months. This will be good news to many families across our city who will have come to rely on the vouchers during school holidays when their children won't be receiving free school meals. We will also be using the money to continue to operate our network of sport hubs across the city which offer sport to those who are in need. And finally, Mr Mayor, you may have seen on the Council's social media channels is that Deputy Leader Councillor John Howard and I have launched a new Ask the Cabinet session to answer questions from residents. The first recording went out to Council's YouTube channel last week. As I have said many times, our big priority is being transparent. We're only sat here at this Council chamber tonight because residents have chosen us to represent them, and therefore it is only right that we are available to answer their questions. Residents can ask those questions by sending an email to askthecabinet@peterborough.gov.uk. I also remind residents that they are invited to attend these full Council meetings where they could ask questions in person. Mr Mayor, can I finally pay tribute to all the councillors who are leaving, and this is their last Council meeting, and Councillor Over, Councillor Casey, Councillor Lane, Councillor Hasib, Councillor Jackie Allen, Councillor Trust, Councillor Simons, Councillor Sainsbury. Mr Mayor, I worked out this is nearly 100 years of service in between them, and it's going to deprive Council of 100 years of service, and I wish them best of luck in their future endeavours. And thank you for your contribution to the City of Peterborough. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Farouk. Just before I call Councillor Fitzgerald, I just want to endorse what you're saying, because I think it's important that we do recognise the years of service of councillors who are retiring. You know, councillors get a really poor press sometimes, but a lot of people in this chamber do devote an awful lot of time to the service of the public, so we need to recognise that. So I call upon Councillor Fitzgerald, who's the leader of the Conservative group, to respond to the comments of the leader.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Happy to rise and respond. And again, congratulations to Danielle and Pranav, and also Eva. Congratulations again from the Conservatives. You did a fantastic job and you were really great, and I hope you'll go on to great things. Again, I'll be as brief as I can. I'll pick up where Councillor Farouk left off. He forgot to include Councillor Harper, Farouk and Elsie in that list, so maybe we should say those goodbyes now ahead of the election, because they won't be here to hear it afterwards, but we'll pick that up on another occasion perhaps. I don't want to dwell on that too much. So the train station is indeed good news, started by the Conservative administration, aided and abetted by Paul Bristow, of course, the £48 million, and to some extent the Combined Authority, although I have to congratulate officers here at the Council for putting that business case together, and I'm glad it's now going forward. So that'll be great news. Also, I have to say, it was not mentioned in tonight's speech, but another piece of good news, it was also great to see the work that I started and the Cabinet started about the Advanced Manufacturing Research Centre that will be, is being proposed for the city. And it was good to see people in Parliament the other day taking that work forward. So again, I want to be perfectly clear, that's a Conservative administration initiative, but I hope the new administration can perhaps take that forward, but I'm not sure whether they'll have the time. And also, he talks about the Council's website. I suppose imitation is the best form of flattery. Ask the Cabinet. Sounds vaguely similar to ask the leader, don't you think, folks? Although I don't think the leader is capable of doing it on his own, so obviously John Howard was there on hand to help. I did watch it, actually, but you've got a long way to go before you pass the audition to convince the public about what plans you're putting forward for the city. But other than that, I think I'll shut up for now and leave the rest of the... hang on a minute. How long have I got left?
You haven't got any time left. You just shut yourself off at the...
Oh, shucks. You're so nice to me, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fitzgerald. You're in great form as normal. I'd like to call upon Councillor Jones, who's the leader of the Labour group.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. To our youth MPs, on behalf of the Labour group, I'd like to congratulate Danielle and Pranav on their election, and thank you to all the other candidates at the same time. Talk is cheap, as we all know, so it's a delight to see young people stepping up to the plate and take part in the democratic process. In terms of digital planning, it's our future, and securing additional funding secures all our futures, I hope, and this builds on the already established gigafast capability. Great news. As for the station quarter, the group is aware of the plans for the new station development, and as a bit of a anorak myself, I'm personally thrilled at the prospect. Bring it on. With regard to Cathedral Square, some of you may know of my abiding interest in developing our city centre offer. Far from keeping people and vehicles out, the Labour group is keen to see them not only see what we can achieve, but also to enjoy all our city has to offer. Let us enjoy the Guildhall whilst creating a true cafe culture in the square to embed it as a jewel in our crown. My colleagues and I were deeply concerned that the Household Support Fund was going to end in March. We're not only delighted to see it will continue to bring benefit to those who need it most, but also hoping that we can continue to support those in need as our current woes, locally and nationally, are far from over. Whilst I applaud the Ask the Cabinet initiative, we must all continue to ensure that we are accountable to those who have chosen to elect us, as I'm sure you'll all agree. Finally, may I take the opportunity to wish all the councillors for whom this is their last full council every success for the future, and also wish those who are observing Ramadan peace, hope and humanity. Ramadan Mubarak.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Now I'd like to call upon Councillor Harper, who's the leader of the Peterborough First Group.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I better make this one count then. Mr Mayor, congratulations to Daniela and Pranav on their election. We wish you all the very best for the future. Seeing the £100,000 for the digital planning improvement is excellent news, and this will be very welcome investment for upskilling our officers. The train station outline business case approval is more great news for the city, and congratulations must go to all those involved in making this happen. Thank you for your efforts. Residents are so looking forward to a nicer, brighter and safer city centre and Guildhall area, and we must do all we can to seriously consider the suggestions being put forward. We need a cathedral square that residents look forward to visiting and shops they look forward to shopping at rather than avoiding. Finally, it's excellent news that the leader and the deputy are showing just how approachable and open and transparent they are by means of the Ask the Cabinet initiative, and I wish them very well in the future with that. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harper. And I call upon Councillor Hogg, who's the leader of the Liberal Democrat Group.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Great to see that we now have two new youth MPs, but a big thanks to Ava Woods, who's here present today, for her term of office. I think in terms of, since I've been a councillor, she's certainly made the biggest impact that I'm aware of as a youth MP for Peterborough. And I think that's a testament to the hard work that she's put in to the role. I believe there are a number of councillors not standing this year, and I'd like to take this last opportunity to thank them for their service. I'm glad to see that finally our fantastic Guildhall is getting a bit of a facelift, and it can provide an even better focal point for our city centre. I think we're really looking forward to see the results of that. And as far as the Peterborough First councillors mentioned by the Conservative leader, I wouldn't get too despondent. His post-election predictions have not always come out the way he thought, unless, of course, he predicted the fact that so many people would leave his party, and then subsequently a load more decide not to restand. So yes, I think the sinking ship is beginning to take on too much water. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hogg. And I call upon Councillor Nicola Day, who's the leader of the Green Party Group.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I too congratulate Danielle and Pranav on being elected as our youth MPs. It's so important to have young people's voices and views being represented in the city, and I look forward to meeting them. I'm also very pleased that the leader has been able to confirm the continuing offer of school holiday supermarket vouchers, and that the government has extended the Household Support Fund for a further 6 months. I too agree that it should become a permanent fund that's to provide support for those in need. I would also like to update the Council on the Eco Homes project, which the Greens secured as a budget idea in the 22-23 budget. We have considered lessons learned from a number of other Eco Homes affordable housing schemes around the country. 2 million is allocated in the capital programme for this project. 2 potential sites have been allocated and a variety of technical surveys and title reviews have taken place. Capacity studies have been prepared, identifying capacity for 4 houses and 8 apartments, and to increase the impact of delivering more homes, there are various opportunities to extend the scheme to also deliver the second site, and they're currently being explored. A £1,000 One Public Estate Brownfield Land Release Fund bid has recently been made towards the demolition and site clearance costs, which we expect to hear the outcome in the late May, early June period. The next steps include commissioning an experienced architect design team to evaluate the most appropriate eco standards to adopt, as well as consultation with members, residents and stakeholders about the proposals. So exciting developments for the future, and I do wish everybody celebrating a Ramadan Mubarak from the Green Party. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dane. I'd like to commend all the group leaders for being inside their allowance of time. So we now move to agenda item 6, which is questions with notice by members of the public. There's been one question submitted by a member of the public this evening. It's question number 1 from Mr. Patrick Brooks. Now, I understand that Mr. Brooks is not able to be here, but he's asked Ms. Vanessa Poole to put the question for him. So, Ms. Poole, would you like to ask Mr. Brooks' question for him in relation to venues for the Palestine Solidarity Campaign? And you've got up to 3 minutes to put the question forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm delighted to do that. Patrick is actually the Secretary of PPSC, so as Chair, I've been delegated to read the question. Last summer, Peterborough Palestine Solidarity Campaign put on a 2-week festival in our city, and I know that many of you visited it. In August, we were offered the use of the museum community area to hold an exhibition of Palestinian culture in April and May this year. On the 31st of January this year, our exhibition was cancelled. We are deeply concerned about this decision. We were proud that our multicultural city saw the importance of educating people about Palestine and its rich culture, as it did in 2023 for the Ukrainian community. Peterborough can hold its head high following the recent vote calling for an immediate permanent ceasefire in Gaza. Our plans complement that vote. Our exhibition is about the history and culture of Palestine using Palestinian voices. We believe now is the time to let Palestinians speak for themselves, promoting peace through better understanding. Will the Council please allow this exhibition to go ahead in the Museum Community Gallery?
Thank you very much. Councillor Howard, would you like to respond to the question? You've got up to 3 minutes to do so.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Ms. Poole, for stepping in to ask the question, because I think it's really important that the public hear the question, so thank you for stepping in and doing that. The postponement of this exhibition was, of course, not an easy decision to take, but it was one that, after careful consideration, we felt was proportionate and necessary to minimise any increase in community tensions. This council has been profoundly shaken by the events in Gaza and Israel, and a majority of councillors, as you know, recently voted to call upon an immediate ceasefire. We are fully motivated to support all communities affected by this terrible conflict. Regrettably, the situation in the Middle East is having far-reaching and detrimental implications on community harmony in this country. Events that prior to the conflict would have had little impact now need to be carefully considered, as they may inadvertently lead to local tensions. As organisers, the Palestinian Solidarity Campaign is a campaign group whose publicised aims and objectives could be polarising during a time of unrest. To host an event from our own premises may call into account council impartiality and lead to an unforeseen community impact. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Councillor Howard. Ms Poole, you can ask a supplementary question, and you've got up to 1 minute to do that.
Yes, I'm not sure I caught all of it, but I won't ask you to repeat it. I noticed one word you used was postponed. We had no idea it was postponed. All we were told is we can't have that space. So, yes, if we can't have it now, part of the question, that's not all the question, would be when. Over the years, we've participated in many events, none of which have caused problems for our community. Indeed, we're committed to contribute to community cohesion. We are hoping to link with others over this, it's not just us. And we, sorry, I just saw I'm running out of time, so. Peterborough has a long and proud history of multiculturalism, embracing all cultures and not excluding any. It's ironic that we're being excluded because for fear of maybe hurting other communities who have never, and some have been to our events, expressed a problem. So will Peterborough Council be one of those standing up for what is right by enabling the exhibition to take place at the museum this year?
Thank you very much. Councillor Howard, you've got up to 2 minutes to respond.
Thank you, and thank you for the follow-up question. I would definitely welcome you to engage with me and officers and the museum team to see what can be done in the meantime. So you do have my assurance that we'd love to talk more with you on that. What I can say is that the museum team are still very keen to host a broader programme of events to promote Palestinian and wider Middle Eastern culture, and the Palestinian and Middle Eastern communities will be invited to be part of a new approach to community programming at the museum. And it is early days, and it really would be good to have your input into that. But it's at its heart, it's about bringing communities together to explore commonality, topics or themes such as food, work, play, family, friendship, celebrations through exhibitions and events. So we'd welcome working closely with you on that, and I hope you take us up on that offer. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Howard. That concludes that item. We now move to agenda item number 7, which is petitions. Anyone presenting a petition this evening will have up to 1 minute to outline their request. We haven't received the required notice from any members of the public that they wish to submit a petition, so there aren't any public petitions. Can I ask if any councillors have any petitions they would like to put forward? Not seeing any. That's okay, thank you very much. So we now move to agenda items 8A to 8C, which is questions on notice. There has been one question submitted by a councillor to a cabinet member, and one question submitted to the chair of the Climate Change and Environment Scrutiny Committee. And I have to say, it's the first time since in the 20 years since we adopted the cabinet system that anybody's put a question to a chair of a committee, but it's perfectly in order, so that's entirely fine. So all questions have been published on the council website, and to save time, we'll take them as read. And so question number 1 from Councillor Allen. Councillor Elsey, would you like to respond to the question from Councillor Steve Allen in relation to pavement parking? And you've got up to 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Thanks to Councillor Allen for his question. The Council recognises the damage and the inconvenience that can be caused by antisocial parking, including on pavements and verges, and in 2018 introduced a scheme whereby a citywide prohibition of verge and pavement parking could be activated in local areas based on a consensus of local residents. The traffic regulation order supporting this prohibition is required to be made active in specific areas, as it is not always the case that parking on verges should be banned outright, for example, in areas where there is extremely limited on-street parking. We do, however, agree that the process to implement a traffic regulation order more generally needs to be reviewed, and we would welcome Parliament making changes that make that process more straightforward. Meanwhile, officers can work with councillors on any specific locations they have concerns about, and details of our verge and pavement parking policy can be found on our website. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Elsie. Councillor Allen, do you have a supplementary question?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor, and why not? Let's have a supplementary. Thank you, Councillor Elsie. It seems we're on the same page with that. We realise the problems and the inconvenience caused by pavement parking, and indeed how dangerous it is to those who are limited sight or mothers with pushchairs, and indeed people using wheelchairs. So we get that. What we need to do is do something about it, and I don't think we are doing much about it as a council. Hopefully the implementation of local legislation can be put into process with a bit more gusto, shall we say. In the meantime, in order that Peterborough City Council, as the highway authority, sends a message of clear intent, can officers at the highest level progress engagement with the police to request they exercise their powers on the issue of causing unnecessarily obstruction and seek to achieve effective enforcement of that offence as a way to deal with pavement parking. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Councillor Elsie, you've got up to 2 minutes to respond to that question.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Allen, I think, for the question. It appears that this has only happened over the last 4 months. As I've already stated, in 2018, the Council introduced a scheme whereby citywide prohibition of a verge and pavement parking could be activated in local areas based on a consensus of local residents. I have also said that where appropriate, we will look to effect change and improve the lives of those affected by this issue. I'm happy to work with both Shailesh Vara, MP, and whomever our next Peterborough MP is on this matter. As this is the case, and as it's such a pressing issue to you, why did you as an administration do nothing in the following 6 years to make a difference from the 2018 introduction of this legislation? Why is it that you're bringing this to council 6 weeks prior to an election, having wasted the 6 years of opportunity you had to, as a Conservative administration, to do anything about it? I think you're underestimating the intellect of the electorate. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thanks. Councillor Fitzgerald was saying that Councillor Allen will answer it. Unfortunately, that's not part of the process. If you hold your card up, you can do that. But point of personal explanation, Councillor.
Thank you. I think, importantly, what we have to do is look forward, not back. People are politicking. People are politicking on the left side of this council. Let's do something about the problem, which has certainly occurred with much more emphasis over the past year or so. Thank you.
Okay, you've explained your position very well. Thank you. Moving on to question number 2, again from Councillor Allen. Councillor Nicola Day, as the Chair of the Climate and Environment Scrutiny Committee, would you like to respond to the question from Councillor Allen in relation to green energy projects and local feeling?
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Allen, for the question. The work of the Climate Change and Environment Scrutiny Committee and the reports and strategies that are taking place will continue whoever the administration or government is. And as a council, we have committed to the ambitions and policies. The council declared a climate emergency in 2019 and committed to becoming a net zero carbon organisation by 2030 and to supporting Peterborough to become a net zero city. This was a unanimous decision made by full council. The Cross-Party Climate Change and Environment Scrutiny Committee has been running for 2 years. It has scrutinised and helped shape many climate-related council activities, including a council carbon footprint and climate change action plan, a local flood risk management strategy, formation of a cycling and walking task and finish group, a climate change public engagement programme, use of the local area energy plan to inform citywide plans, a climate change schools engagement programme, a carbon literacy programme, a climate adaptation plan, a recycling and waste policy, an eco-homes project, which I updated everybody about earlier, a climate change procurement policy, and the Peterborough Integrated Renewables Infrastructure, otherwise known as PIRI project. It is not the role for me as a scrutiny chair to comment on the general election manifesto of any party. It is our role to ensure that the policies put forward by the council administration are robust and working for the benefit of Peterborough residents and our natural environment.
Thank you, Councillor Day. Councillor Allen, do you have a supplementary question?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think I will. Fluently answered, as one would expect from the chairman of that committee. I am conscious that outside influences affect how we get on with each other, and certainly we have to be careful how we choose our friends, as has been manifest in this chamber over the last 5 or 6 months. So I'm pleased that you are still passionate about your ideals, but I do think looking forward perhaps you should be conscious of people around you having different ideas. So the question is, will you carry on with this policy despite the fact that one of your alliance parties has now kicked into touch their ideals?
Thank you.
Councillor Allen. Councillor Nicola Day, would you like to respond to the question?
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Just to reassure you, my position as Scrutiny Chair of this committee, as we all know, is apolitical, and I can assure you that members of the Cross-Party Committee, which are also apolitical, have been working together and moving forward in a very positive direction in terms of our climate and environment ambitions, and we will continue to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, so that concludes the question time. We now move to agenda item 8D, which is questions on notice to submitted by members to members of the combined authority. We haven't had any such questions put forward. So agenda item 9, executive and committee recommendations to council. The executive hasn't put any recommendations to council, nor has any committee, so we don't have anything to consider under that particular item. So we now move to agenda item 10, which is in relation to the record of executive decisions taken since the last full council meeting, and these are detailed on page 15 to 19 of your agenda. This is what's sometimes known as the page turner item, and the leader will introduce this particular item, and we'll go through each page in turn, and all questions will be answered by the leader unless he refers them to another member of the cabinet. I'd like to remind councillors that they should ask questions on the decisions in the reports, and all questions should be relevant to the actual decision. As usual, if I think any preamble to the question is unreasonably long, I will ask councillors to immediately ask their question. And can members note that once we've moved on from one page to the next, you won't be able to go back and ask the question on a previous page. So, Councillor Mohammed Farouk, could I ask you to introduce this item?
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and consider it read, and just will open it up for questions.
Right, okay, so taking each page in turn, we move to page 15. Any questions on page? Councillor Hogg.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and through you. So I attended the Cabinet member on the 11th of March, and there was a particular item regarding the capital programme for transport works, and I asked a couple of questions there which understandably were unable to be answered due to the fact that there was no pre-warning of what I would be asking. And I just wondered if the Cabinet member is now in possession of the answers to those questions, they being, in my ward, we have Ayres Drive, which for a number of years has been on the list for resurfacing. I think the first time it got cancelled because of delays of works that meant that, because they were at the end of the list, the programme had finished, and so it was delayed till the following year, and then the following year it was then found that there were some issues with drainage, and there were some works done, and again we were told that the resurfacing would be done the following year, and again that didn't happen, again because there were some other issues around about surface water being present on the road. So I want to know what's happening with Ayres Drive specifically, but also I also am aware of quite a few streetlights that are on the Thorpewood roundabout that have been out for over a year now, and I was just wondering if they were now in the capital programme to be fixed permanently. Thank you.
Okay, so it's got a long, almost like a series of questions, but Councillor Farouk, who's going to respond to that?
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Hogg for bringing those questions to Cabinet and also for bringing them to Council tonight. With regards to Ayres Drive, we've had Ayres Drive down to be surface treated for quite some time now. However, due to the wet weather winter periods recently, this brought to light issues with the drainage. The drainage system was initially identified as belonging to Anglian Water. However, they have now said that this belongs to Peterborough City Council. We're in contact with various utilities who have dug through the pipe to restore the capacity of the pipe so it is working to an adequate standard. Once completed, we will be prioritising the resurfacing. We are conscious that we do not want to resurface before the drainage work is completed, so we don't have to break the new surface to fix the drain at a later date. In terms of the street lights around the Thorpe roundabout, we have had a number of issues on junction 33 of the Neen and Longthorpe Parkway. We have reset the feeder pillar several times and have electrical testing being carried out regularly. However, we feel it would be best at this location to install a new feeder pillar, and we hope to do this early in the new financial year, and this is included in the programme of works. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. I've got a question from Councillor Hussain.
Thank you, Mayor. It was similar to Councillor Hogg. Now, 3 years ago, I was told that the capital programme is set 3 years ahead. And at that time, there was no budget for Dogsthorpe. Dogsthorpe's roads are probably some of the worst in the city, especially Eastern Avenue. The footpaths in Eastern Avenue have the original slabs, as do many of the other footpaths around the ward. I was promised at the time that there would be capital going forward for Dogsthorpe. So it was just a question to say, within this budget, is there a capital for Dogsthorpe for those improvements?
Thank you. Is that Councillor Elsey as well here?
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you for the question. I can't quantify for what the administration did 3 years ago, so I suggest you take it up with them. In terms of the specifics that you have requested, it's the first time that you've raised it with me. If you would like to send me an email with the specifics of the areas that you have in question, I'll be able to give you a detailed answer. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Okay, could I just remind members to specify which items I'm asking the question? I think it was obvious with that one, but so I now call Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I'm referring to page 16, item E, number 1.
Yeah, we haven't gone on to 16 yet, so just, can you just hold a second?
Okay, I did say next page when I waved.
Yeah, okay. Has anybody got any further questions on page 15? No, okay, so we now move to Councillor 16, and Councillor Hogg, is that on page 16? Okay, so Councillor Allen on 16, then Councillor Hogg, then Councillor Coles.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. We get there in the end. Apologies for any confusion I might have caused. Okay, so we're now reporting relevant to bullet point 2, city centre terror mitigation. Without any sort of pushback and point scoring of something in the past from people on the other side of the chamber, because this is so essential to our city centre safety. This has been discussed on many occasions in the past, presentations to Cabinet from officers, but nothing's happened on it. Where are we with city centre terror mitigation, and will it be going forward in these plans? Thank you.
Thank you. Is that Councillor Elsey as well?
It is, Mr Mayor, and thank you for the question. The answer is yes.
A commendably short answer. Councillor Hogg, then.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. I've actually got two questions on this page, if I can beg your indulgence for that.
If you want to ask them in turn, then
I can certainly do them, yeah, one at a time,
but
just so that you come back to me is the point. So the first one is item F, to do with the funding for the station quarter. I know that our cycling fraternity are very keen to see some sort of provision for cycling across the Crescent Bridge, and I just wanted to make sure that that was being fed in to this the proposals that will be going forward for the station quarter, or will that be a separate item?
Is that Councillor Elsie as well?
No, Councillor Hiller.
Sorry to be boring, but yes, it is that the whole gamut of modes of transport are being factored into any redevelopment plans, schemes, thoughts and designs. So yes.
Okay, so
my second question. That's okay.
Yeah, is it on the same item?
It is, no, it's a different item, but the same page.
Okay, and do that. Then.
So the next one is G, which is the Regional Fitness and Swimming Centre and Bishops Road. As I said, I was at the cabinet meeting, and there was a representation from is it COPS, the City of Peterborough Swimming Society, and I'm given to understand that because they haven't got a home anymore in terms of the regional pool being shut, they are currently using other pools in the area to facilitate their club and keep it running. And they are currently using the Amble School pool, which is a 50-metre pool, by the way, on a Saturday. And I was just wondering if there's some way that we could maybe use our school transport vehicles to be able to put a ferry between the regional pool and Amble School, so that the club can, because some members find it difficult to get all the way over to Oundle on a Saturday. I'll certainly engage with the COPs to see if that's something that would be useful to them.
Okay, Councillor Farouk, who's answering that one then?
Councillor Hiller.
Councillor Hiller.
I'm not sure it is me actually. I'm not sure who it is. I don't think it's much to do with this particular decision, frankly. But if Councillor Elsie would, I don't know a huge amount about school transport, I'm afraid.
Just before I pass it to Councillor Elsie, it's just a request for talking to Aragon Direct Services or Peterborough Limited to see if they can accommodate this or not. But Councillor Elsie, would you like to add anything?
Thank you, Leader. I wasn't going to add much more than what you've already said, other than I am acutely aware that COPs may raise an amount of their funding through the people who can actually support their events, and the capacity for that has been reduced somewhat as a consequence of what's happened at the regional pool. So I am aware that their funds are down. All I can promise is that I will take this back and discuss it, because I don't think it's anything other than a sensible suggestion. So I will take it back. I can't guarantee anything, but I will certainly look at it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Right, okay, so we've got questions now from Councillor Coles, Councillor Nicola Day and Councillor Fitzgerald. Could I just ask the members which item that you're asking the question under, so we don't jump around too much? Councillor Coles, which item's yours on that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's item E1, third bullet point.
Councillor Nicola Day.
Mine's item G on page 16, but it starts on page 16, then it moves on to 17.
Yeah, okay.
So.
And Councillor Fitzgerald, which is yours? G, okay. Right, so we'll take the question on item E, which is Councillor Coles first then.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Looking at item E, it discusses three projects, a capital programme of works, stating that work shouldn't exceed a certain value. Yesterday at the Growth Committee, I was asking whether some money could be found, if there is some excess there, to provide education for individuals who have suffered from flooding in the past around the city, and we'll know that particular circumstance of the large amount of flooding that over 200 homes were inundated. Cambridgeshire City Council have sufficient staff to be able to provide training and support for people to prepare for flood mitigation. I'm just wondering if some of this money, if it's not fully committed to the capital spend, can be varied to provide that sort of opportunity to be able to provide reassurance to our residents who might face flooding. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Farouk, who's answering that one?
Councillor Elsie, but just before I go to Councillor Elsie, we can definitely look into it from this budget. If not, we have a great relationship with Combined Authority who run the transport part, and we could get some money from them as well. But Councillor Elsie, did you want to add anything?
Thank you, Leader. You've stolen my thunder again. There's not really an awful lot that I can add to that, other than I made note of the question that Councillor Cole raised last night at the scrutiny, because obviously I was there, and I have taken it forward with officers this morning, but obviously the time span is short, so I can't really comment any further at this point.
Okay, so we've now got two questions on item G, the Regional Fitness and Swimming Centre. So Councillor Nicola Day first.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I was pleased to see on this item that point 3 approves in principle to the development of a new leisure facility and to the development of the outline business case and next steps timeline as summarised in paragraphs 4.5.3 and 4.5.4, which will be approved by Cabinet at a later date. Can I just ask, because it says later date, I just wanted to kind of clarify what sort of timescales we're looking at. Are we looking at sort of the summer? Do we have any idea about when those next step timetable will be looked at? Thank you.
Is that Councillor Elsie?
No, I'll do it. Obviously, this is one of the highest priorities for the administration, and we have asked officers to work urgently on this, and we're looking for a paper perhaps in June.
Thank you. So we now call Councillor Councillor Wayne Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thanks for your indulgence. Like Councillor Day, I was concerned about the date, and because I've heard 2028 that we might be without a pool for that length of time. And despite what Mr Pakes, the parliamentary Labour candidate, says, I'll just tell you something. 355,000 in revenue repairs and maintenance, 328,000 revenue inspection and testing, and nearly 725,000 in capital investment has gone into that facility. So there's no way it was rack and ruin. The rack is what actually was its death knell, as I said. But what I want to know is, will the Cabinet, led by Mr Pakes and Mr Bristow, commit to a 50-metre pool in the city, also incorporating diving and COPS facilities with viewing for the public, and indeed a much-needed hydrotherapy pool, which will be very welcome to many users. That's where we would have gone with it. I'd like to know what the current amnesia crew will do at the back.
Okay, Councillor Farouk wants to answer that.
Thank you. Unlike his administration, all the options will be on the table, and we will consider those options. But you know, Mr Mayor, I often said English is my second language, but today I'm going to give previous leader a lesson in English and the plan. When he keeps mentioning that he had the plan, I think we haven't found any plan, but then I looked into the word plan, what it means. And in this case, it means identification of location, source of funding, design, and the builders allocated. Well, none of those elements were anywhere to be seen, so perhaps the word plan needs to be learnt here. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Fitzgerald, you've got a supplementary question.
Mr Mayor, we've been through this before. I think the Chief Executive has clarified the position. We had a plan, a vision, whatever you want to call it. We had a plan and a vision back to 2018, and I can produce the document for you. In the latter year, we were talking to operators. A site location is next to the existing pool, so I won't take any of that nonsense, and the Chief Executive has confirmed it.
Councillor Farouk, did you want to respond to that?
Councillor Hiller would like to respond on that.
I think he's got a point. What type of point is it, Councillor Fox?
I'm not too sure if it's explanation or what. But I'm a bit shocked when he said about the hydrotherapy pool. We were promised that the new hydrotherapy pool would be open by 2023. Can't see any sign of that one.
I think it's actually a point of accuracy, but we'll let that go. Councillor Farouk.
So I'll just finish off answering of that question. I mean, I think it's ironic previous leader mentions the word hydrotherapy pool. Many of my colleagues always regarded him and his deputy leader at the time vendors of the hydrotherapy pools.
Okay. Would you like to clarify what you said, Councillor Farouk?
How they've broken off the last hydrotherapy pool.
Oh, okay, right.
Councillor
Hiller, did you want to add something to the answer?
Yes, I'd like to add to what the leader has said, Mr. Mayor, if I might. I think if it wasn't so serious, it would be hilarious that the Conservative leader sitting next to his deputy personally ordered the destruction of the existing hydrotherapy pool. And for him to stand up, I can't quite see whether he's up or down where I'm sitting, but to stand up and demand a hydrotherapy facility in this city when he and his deputy leader personally ordered the existing pool's destruction. Disgusting. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So what are you doing? Is this a point of...
Point of accuracy, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, right.
This council voted to close the hydrotherapy pool. It wasn't in the budget. Let's make no mistake. And it's not a personal issue between Councillor Allen and I. The council closed the hydrotherapy pool for redevelopment for use of the school. So I won't take any crap from Councillor Hiller.
Sorry, Councillor Fitzgerald, can you not use those sort of words, please? Use it. Okay, thank you. I now call upon Councillor Cole, who's got...
Hello, it's about the development of the first primary school for Great Haddon. There's currently a teacher recruitment and retention crisis across the country, and in particular in Peterborough. I know of many schools who have not got fully staffed teachers, including secondary and primary. I'm really happy that there's going to be a new primary school, but is there any plan in place for Peterborough City Council to support schools in recruiting and retaining teachers, especially since all the schools, or pretty much all the schools, are now academies and are no longer under the control of Peterborough City Council?
Sorry, Councillor Cole, can I just ask you which item you're asking a question on?
Development of the first primary school for Great Haddon.
Okay, we haven't actually got to that yet, but as you've asked the question, if someone could answer it, please. Who's going to answer it, Councillor Farouk?
Thank you, Councillor Cole, and through you, Mr. Mayor. It is up to the academies to actually supply, but there are actually meetings between schools, and there is a way that people could actually be brought into teaching, and that is continually happening, and I do attend the meetings for that. So there is a constant effort to try and get people into teaching, but as you know, it's not easy to do, but it is up to the academies to actually put those people in.
Right, okay. Could I just remind members again to specify which item you're asking questions on and to wait until we get to that page? So we're still on page 16. Are there any more questions on page 16? No. So we now move on to page 17. Are there any other questions on page 17?
Mr. Mayor, just before you move on,
Sorry,
I will note that I didn't get an answer to my question about a commitment to building those facilities.
Okay, Councillor Fitzgerald, it was a point of accuracy that you were making, so you were correcting what you alleged to be an inaccuracy, so there isn't a response to that normally. So, any questions on page 17 then? Councillor Marcos Resti.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's the development of the first primary school for Great Haddon, and number one, it says that the presumption is for a free school competition to select a multi-academy trust operator. In view of the fact that all of us who are councillors in those two areas know the pressures on our local schools, what happens if you don't find an academy trust to come forward and pay for it or put their share in? What's the council going to do? What's the plan, Mr. Mayor? Because that would be a tremendous loss for Hampton.
Okay, so who's going to tell us about the plan, Councillor Farouk?
Yes, we normally invite with DFE in different waves for different academies and free schools to bid for these things. In case we do miss it, this is a statutory requirement, Mr. Mayor, and the council itself will run the school. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Fitzgerald.
Just a little bit more detail on H, please, Mr. Mayor, page 17. How many homes is this, and what is the money because I don't see a number here without referring back to the full document, but it's just a little sparse in detail. I think it's well worth publicising how many homes we have or might have and how much.
Okay, so this is a question on item 8. Who'd like to answer that one then? A lot of pointing going on. Who's going to do it?
I'll answer it. Yeah.
Councillor Fruit.
I'm aware there was 25 houses initially from the first tranche of the grant, and what the funding we're looking at here is doing those up to a standard where we're going to go so that they could be occupied as soon as possible. So this was money for doing the repairs, getting them up to standard of living.
Thank you. So, Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is also on item I regarding the development of the first primary school. What work are we doing to look at the current school stock that we've got within the area, obviously not just Great Haddon, but looking at surrounding areas too? I'm aware of at least one primary school in the area that's got a falling roll year on year for reception students. Obviously, a large part of this is the placement of where there's young children in the area, but what are we looking at in terms of building new schools when existing schools are struggling to get students in? Thank you.
At the moment, there are a number of schools that we're looking at to see what is available. We have what we call balloon years, where there are more children than we have places. So we're looking at all schools to see where there is capacity to actually increase in those schools. So we're trying not to do away with any buildings and trying to use them to the fullest. But we are required to actually have a school once we get to a certain number of new buildings. It's part of planning that is there, so that's why this new school has come forward.
Thank you. Okay, is there any more questions on page 17? Not seeing any, so we move to page 18. We get to the record of individual cabinet member decisions. Councillor Suresti.
I got part of an answer to my question. Am I not entitled to a supplement? Because I didn't think the answer was very good.
If you'd have raised it, but we've actually moved on to the next page.
Well, only because you weren't looking at me.
Okay, given the fact we've got plenty of time, I will on this occasion allow you to put a supplementary question.
I would just like the leader to confirm that if we're not able to find a free school academy to take on the Hampton Primary School, that he will find the £7 or £8 million we may need for the local authority to build it and run it. Thank you.
Okay, is that Councillor Bisbee as well, or is it? He's asking the leader. Okay, would the leader like to answer it then?
Look, we have obligation to build this school one way or the other, so we will.
Okay, thank you. So anything else on page 17? So we move to page 18. Any questions on page 18? Not seeing any. And the final page is page 19. Not seeing any questions on that one either. So we now move to agenda item 11, which is questions on the combined authority made since the last meeting. That we haven't been notified of any decisions from the combined authority since the last meeting, so there's nothing to ask any questions on. So we then move to agenda item 12, motions on notice. We've received one motion on notice from Councillor Andy Coles. There is an alteration to this motion, which is set out on page 9 of your additional information pack. If any member objects to the altered version of the motion being moved, would you please say so? I'm not seeing any objections. So, Councillor Coles, would you like to move your motion as set out in the additional information pack?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I would. This motion concentrates on local producers of the food we eat and who need our support. I'm aware that 2 neighbouring councils to Peterborough are already on this journey of supporting local farmers and food producers. Suffolk County councillors have already passed a motion like this one, ensuring that all catered events are, wherever possible, sourced from local food producers, always including meat, dairy and plant-based options. North Northamptonshire Authority have gone further and have made additional commitments to encourage people to shop locally to take advantage of homegrown, nutritious meat, dairy, fruit and vegetables. I'm convinced we can do better, if not as well as our neighbouring authorities, for our own local producers and for our residents. Supporting our local farmers and food producers is very much needed, as business certainty and confidence is low in the sector. Some of you will have seen the ups and downs at Jeremy Clarkson's Diddley Squat Farm, where even if you don't like the man, and you wonder at some of his ideas, you can't have missed the problems of hard physical work for poor returns. The weather, it's always the weather. Bureaucracy from central government and, in his case, the local council planning committee, and challenging market conditions, all conspiring against business success in this sector. In the Greater Peterborough area, farming and food production employs around 8,000 people and brings in nearly £1.1 billion to the East of England economy. Did you know that the region produces 24% of the nation's potatoes and enough wheat to make 250 million loaves of bread a year? It's also worth noting that food-related manufacturing, or agri-tech, and aligned businesses employ another 10,250 people here. Even within our own authority border, there are approximately 120 agricultural businesses operating today. But the sector is facing difficult times. We need to act as a council to give reassurance to our food producers that they are valued partners in the economic prosperity of the region and continue to have our support. And I'm asking that we further enhance our relationship with our livestock, dairy and arable farmers so they can continue to thrive. Now, I was fascinated to see at the Combined Authorities Oversight and Scrutiny Committee a report was published that looked at the production of greenhouse gases here in Peterborough and where they came from. We're often told that meat production has a significant impact on global warming, and it is true that on a global level there is a concern about cattle producing methane. However, here in Peterborough, emissions from cattle are a very, very small percentage of the total. Other arguments against livestock and dairy farming come from different pressure groups campaigning on moral or health reasons, and research shows between 13 to 26% of the British public are willing to consider making some changes to their diet. However, we know that over 90% of the British public still eat red meat, and 98% still drink dairy milk. While these foods are so popular, it makes sense to favour locally produced, sustainable meat and dairy products that have some of the highest welfare standards in the world over cheaper imported products ridden in intensive systems with lower welfare standards. In our democratic system, this is how we should operate. We should enable the decisions we make about our food to be aligned with healthy, sustainable choices. We can do our bit as a council. We can participate simply by ensuring any catered event in council premises can be supported and supplied by a locally sourced food and drink provider, including meat, dairy and plant-based products. But we can go even further. We should be listening more to our local food producers so that they can not just survive, but thrive in the local economy. And as we transition to carbon neutrality, they can come on the journey with us. And I ask you all to support the 4 recommendations in my motion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Coles. Councillor Ray, would you like to second the motion and either speak now or reserve your right to speak later?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Happy to second the motion and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you. Can I call upon any other speakers? Oh, there's a veritable forest of hands going up. Right, so let's take Councillor Over, Councillor Elsie, Hiller, Skipstead. Right. Allen, Steve Allen, yeah, okay. Right, so we'll take them in that order. So, what was it? Councillor Over, sorry, I couldn't read my own writing for a minute, but call Councillor Over.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be brief. I rise to support Councillor Coles' motion here. Only yesterday we went to planning to object, the village of Helpston to object the proposal to build 20 houses. Doesn't seem too much for a city, but for a village it's a large consequential development. And of course it was accepted. It went through with no particular problem, and there we have another 20 houses, probably with anywhere between 40 and 60 people, and probably 40 cars. Great. But what are they going to build it on? Prime agricultural land. At the moment it's full of winter wheat. The whole area grows wheat, beet, sunflowers, and a variety of other new crops that are coming in. We'll pass this motion, but what's going to happen? I'll tell you what's going to happen unless we stop it. More houses are going to be built in the villages. More traffic's going to be built in the village. So I thank Councillor Coles, and I'm referring the Planning Committee's decision yesterday to call in the future.
Thank you. There actually is a procedure for referring things to the Planning Review Committee if you want to. That you should be aware of that. I'm now called Councillor Alsey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, Councillor Cole, for bringing this to the council. As a rural councillor, I work very closely with the farmers in my ward, the Burgesses, the Sharpleys, the Dunlops, the Fullers and the Reeds, to name just a few. So I do listen to them and I work very, very closely with them. I too echo what Councillor Over said in relation to land being taken, and it concerns me that in my ward the Peterborough MP has put forward his support for an unneeded and unwanted cemetery to be built in the village of Sutton on prime agricultural land. I am going to support this motion because I absolutely believe that we should be buying locally wherever possible, and we should be supporting those hard-working farmers that surround us, provided we are talking about all farmers, not one or a chosen few. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Alsey. And now called Councillor Hiller.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have to say, initially, I was quite surprised at Councillor Over's comments about the Planning Committee yesterday, because I understand that this was approved primarily with the Conservative members of that committee. I may be incorrect in that assertion, but that's what I've been told. So,
Mr. Hussain, have you got what type of point are you raising?
Well, that's incorrect.
So it's a point of accuracy then?
That's right.
Okay,
yeah.
right.
Can you tell me why that's incorrect, Councillor Hussain?
Because I voted.
Okay, just before you answer that, could I just caution, if Councillor Over is going to refer this to the Planning Review Committee, members of the Planning Review Committee need to be cautious about what they actually say in the Council chamber in relation to this particular item.
I'm not a member of that committee, Councillor.
Point of information, please, Mayor, Mr. Mayor. I've already referred it for calling.
Okay.
I did that a couple of hours ago.
Okay, in that case, if members are going to refer specifically to that planning application, they need to be careful that they don't prejudice themselves in relation to a debate that's going to happen at the Planning Review Committee. Councillor Hussain, you've got a point of accuracy. You were saying it's incorrect, were you?
I was just saying yes, because I voted against that application, so what Councillor Hiller is saying is incorrect.
Right. Okay. Councillor Hiller, did you want to continue with your speech?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I didn't say all the councillors, all the Conservative councillors of that committee. I said Conservative councillors. You were one that voted against it. The rest voted for it. However, moving on, as a councillor similar to Councillor Elsey, I'm in my 18th year now of representing one of our city's beautiful rural wards, and I have little hesitation, Mr. Mayor, in supporting Councillor Cole's motion. Local producers and suppliers are indeed the lifeblood of our rural economy's enterprise, and wherever possible, I do of course shop with those outlets and farm shops local to me, notably the Morton family-owned Willowbrook farm shop, not a million miles away from where Councillor Hussain lives. Indeed, Mr. Mayor, as a board member of the Rural EU Leader Programme a few years ago, I was part of the decision to award Moor Farm in Newborough a considerable grant to enable the development of the super farm shop facility they and their many happy customers now enjoy in Thorney and Newborough Ward. Mr. Mayor, I would most certainly support any initiatives to use rural suppliers for council events where catering facilities are involved. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hiller. I now call Councillor Heather Skipstead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to bring the Chamber's attention to point 3 of the motion, which is about the Council considering ways to encourage residents to shop locally, take advantage of homegrown, affordable, nutritious produce, and so on, and reducing food miles to our tables, contributing to rural development and boosting the local economy. In 2020, Councillor Nicola Day passed a motion to create a food strategy, and I have been involved in that alongside Lauren Kendrick, who's been leading on it, and created a Peterborough Food Partnership. And I don't know if if people are aware of how much work's been going on those lines already. Currently, they're pulling together an application for Sustainable Food Place Awards in 2024. They had a Growing Together festival last year, celebrating food systems in Peterborough, engaging local farmers, national organisations, and that went on for a couple of months. They're exploring a healthy food and growing project across multiple sites. They're showing a film this Friday with a local regenerative farmer, and they will have a panel of farmers at that event. They are planning a food summit in the next few months, where at that point they're going to be putting together the final food strategy. So they've been very involved with the local community on this for the last 4 years. So my point is a lot of work's already been done and is still going on through the Peterborough Food Partnership, and that this motion appears to duplicate some of this work, particularly in point 3, the one I read out. So although I'm happy to support this motion with the proviso it can be incorporated with the work that is currently already taking place, and particularly with Lauren Kendrick, who is running this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Perhaps the mover would like to respond to that when you get to your summation at the end. Now call upon Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is an interesting debate. In fact, we're all violently in agreement, it appears. I'm happy to support the motion, particularly as elements reflect my question on food provision at PCC events, which I posed at the last council. However, I'm a little bit disappointed that it's somewhat diluted with the amendment. It's a bland version of the original motion, and there is now no commitment but merely an aspiration to encourage local suppliers to bid to provide. Of course, I understand that a commitment would be specific and suppliers could be misrepresented as restriction of trade for those that don't get it. So I understand why the amendment went in, but it is a pale version of what Councillor Cole put in originally. It's still worth saying, isn't it? I'm pleased that meat and dairy are in the motion, because that's what I put forward with supplying at council meetings, which I was concerned that we may be going down another route on that. I do hope that the intention to support local suppliers is taken seriously by those who are making the purchasing decisions. As a ward councillor for Thorney and Newborough, another wonderful rural ward in our constituency, in our unitary authority, I'm pleased to commit to ensure that our farmers and producers feature in our forward plans. Thank you very much. I'm happy to support Councillor Cole's motions on that basis.
Thank you very much. Does anybody else like to speak? We've got Councillor Jones and Councillor Fitzgerald. So Councillor Jones first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't think we've got any problem at all in supporting this motion, although as a city we remain mindful that we're a low-wage economy surrounded by areas of immense wealth, and we've got to do all we can within the city. Most of my colleagues here represent inner city wards, not the rural wards, and we're mindful that people have to do their shopping. And so it is an aspiration, and it's also an aspiration that we help people who are struggling to put food on the table even now, not just supporting local farmers, which we obviously wholeheartedly support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Now call Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks to Councillor Coles for bringing this. I think we're, as Councillor Allen said, all basically agreeing. I think that, conversely, unlike Councillor Jones's members, most of our members represent the rural wards, and it has been the privilege of the Conservative group to protect those interests and those of farmers. Councillor Over last week was only talking in his column about how much we value village life and the rural economy. And I must mention Shilish Farr as well, who spoke up for the villages, and in fact at the weekend at a recent AGM it's strange enough that Peterborough First talk about Shilish with such good grace when in fact he once shot a lot of them, by the way.
Mr. Farr is not here to clarify whether that's his intention or not.
Others were there to bear witness, Mr.
Right,
Mayor.
can I just ask if there's any further people wish to speak? Not seeing anybody, in which case I call upon Councillor Ray to exercise his right to speak and second the motion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and I'll keep it short. It's great to hear that there's support from across the chamber on this, and in particular from colleagues from other rural wards. I'd like to echo the earlier comments as well regarding Moor Farm. This is the perfect example of a local farm and local business that should be supported and promoted wherever possible, and that's really the root of this motion. So pleased to support it and pleased to second it. Thank you.
Thank you. And we now call upon Councillor Andy Coles to summate on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's gratifying to hear the widespread support in the Chamber tonight. You asked me to address particularly Councillor Skipstead's comments, and unfortunately I only had 5 minutes, otherwise I would have spoken at length at the beginning of my presentation about the good work that was done on the food sustainability projects that are run through Flourish Peterborough. And of course, if I can get down to that film showing that I think there are 3 farmers that are going to be there who are all working sustainably on beef and sheep and arable and vegetables as well. So it's, I think probably you're going to have to book a seat now that we've announced it in full council. There may not be sufficient space at the Quakers meeting house for everybody, but yes, absolutely, the work that Councillor Day did was what I considered before I wrote this particular motion, which deals specifically with the producers and not the consumers, if you like. And the other thing to bear in mind is that Flourish Peterborough is still running their survey, so all members and anyone listening, please go to the Flourish Peterborough website and respond to the food survey so that your record can be gathered. We should also remember that this week is Food Waste Action Week, and that RAP is working to try to help people who are in difficult circumstances to just purchase what they need and choose what you use rather than buying prepackaged fruit and vegetables. And they say that 60,000 tonnes of food waste could be prevented just by shops selling potatoes, bananas and apples one by one, which is an extraordinary number. So I think I'm not in any way trying to denigrate all the work that's currently taking place. I'm just really concentrating on the concerns that our farming community have about the challenges that they currently face. You know, it's a very difficult market for them at the moment, and we must do all we can. And I'd like to see more than just this idea of food. I'd like to see farmers' markets being available in the city. I'd like to see, when it comes to planning decisions on diversification of farms, that we are listening to them with great care and concern. And I'd like to see that we can work to those areas that have transport problems and broadband connectivity, so it's not just food. But thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, for giving me the opportunity to present this motion to Council.
Thank you, Councillor Coles. Now, I haven't heard anybody say they're going to vote against the motion, so can we take it that it's agreed? Agreed. Okay, so thank you very much. Right, so I would now like to propose suspending Standing Order 16.11 for agenda item 13A. This will permit both the Chief Executive and the Chair of the Improvement Panel to address Council and in particular to respond to any questions that councillors have. So we now move to agenda item... can I ask if there's a seconder for the motion to suspend the standing orders? Councillor Farouk is seconding it.
Happy to second, Mr. Mayor.
And can I call upon any other speakers on that? In that case, is it agreed? Agreed, is it? Okay, thank you. Right, so we now move to agenda item 13A, which is the report of the Peterborough City Council Independent Improvement and Assurance Panel. Because we are asked to approve this, can I ask first of all Councillor Farouk, would you like to move the recommendations of the report and make any comments that you have?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I can introduce the report. We welcome the panel's extension for a further 12 months and their 5th report to the Council. I would like to personally thank the Improvement and Assurance Panel for their invaluable work in helping the Council continue to improve and address the challenge around financial sustainability. I believe the report is balanced and helpfully identifies some key areas which we are looking to address. I would also like to thank all councillors and staff for the hard work and collaboration which is reflected in the report, and recognise the accomplishment of passing the budget at the previous council meeting. Mr. Mayor, as previously stated, we are not complacent and are maintaining our momentum as we now enter the second phase of our improvement journey, which is about further transformation of our services to meet the ever-changing demands of our city. Alan Kelly, as chair of the panel, is here tonight, along with the Chief Executive, Matt Gladstone, to answer any questions councillors may wish to ask. Thank Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Just before we get to the questions, just to go through the formalities, Councillor Howard, would you like to second the motion and either speak now or reserve your right to speak?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Happy to second and reserve my right to speak. Thank you.
Right, okay. We'll now move to any contributions other people want to make. Because we have suspended the standing order, I'm prepared to accept either people making comments or asking questions. But just before we do that, can I ask the Chief Executive or Eleanor if you would like to make any introductory remarks in respect of the report, or are you just happy to answer any questions?
Happy to take questions straight away. I think Eleanor's the same.
Right, okay. So can I ask for indications of anybody who's either wants to make a comment or ask a question? I've got Councillor Nicola Day, Councillor Hogg. Any others? Councillor Jones, Councillor Jamil. You have a further chance later on, but so we now move to Councillor Nicola.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So I'm looking at the 4.1.3 section on the longer term outlook, and it mentions in that section that the council, it talks about earlier in the report that we had to use some reserves for the 24-25 budget, and it mentions that the council will need to ensure that plans are in place to meet those anticipated budget gaps, and those plans must explicitly exclude any anticipation of further use of reserves. I know it does go on to mention some of this, but I just wondered if are we thinking ahead to how to outline how best ways that we can achieve this, so we're not reliant on our reserves, because obviously there won't be any left if we continue to use our reserves in this manner. Thank you.
Right, who would like to answer that question? Yes, Eleanor.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. Thank you for your question, Councillor Day. As we point out in the report, a substantial amount of reserves has been used in 2023-24 and planned to be used in 24-25, and that's why we're clear in the longer term that after 24-25 be very, very limited ability to use reserves in the future years. But much of your planning in your budget for 24-25 is about the work that needs to be done on savings and efficiencies and service transformation, and using the balances that you're planning to use in 24-25 to fund that programme of delivery of those savings and efficiencies in order to be able to make the budgets in 25-26 and onwards much more sustainable. And that's why we point out two specific things in the report. One, which is about the regular reporting of progress on savings, and any adverse budget movement and corrective action should continue as you do at present, particularly through the very strong financial sustainability working group that you have. And the other thing that we point out in paragraph 4.1.5 is improving the accountability culture. There is still too much reliance on the finance officers plugging the gaps and finding solutions, and that what we need to see is much more accountability of budget holders, bringing their budgets in to line and doing the work that they need to do. And I think that some of that accountability should be reported into the Financial Services Working Group, alongside the work of the finance officers reporting on the positions. It's a very common thing in local authorities for people to rely on the finance officers to sort out problems. It's very common, but it's much better for people who are holding the budgets and are responsible for the budgets to have the culture of sorting those things out for themselves and being held accountable for doing what they've said that they will do throughout the course of the financial year, and to bring their budgets in online. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Day, do you have a supplementary question?
No, thank you for that response. Thank you.
Right, we now move to Councillor Hogg then.
Thank you. I know it's been agreed that the panel, you and your colleagues, will still be with us until sort of December time. That's already been agreed. But do you think it would be appropriate for us to go back to DLUC at this stage to ask them, in view of the the work that's been done and where we now find ourselves, that we can have this kind of Damocles hammer over us in terms of being officially under external intervention removed forthwith, basically. Do you think that would be an appropriate thing to be asking DLUC to do?
Thank you. Alan, or Chief Executive response to that one. Chief Executive.
Thank you, Councillor Hogg. I think it's fair to say the report acknowledges it, the really hard work, commitment across all parties and the Council over the last 2 years. DLUC do watch these meetings. They are very pleased with the progress that we're making. You know, from my perspective, I feel we've done everything that we needed to do in relation to what was the ask from the reports from DLUC, SIPFA and a few other parties, LGA, 2 years ago. They are still worried, like many councils, around the financial landscape and challenges. So the question around reserves is absolutely critical on our levels of debt, and that's why things like the asset review is underway at the moment. We are looking at transformation, and we want all councils to be involved in looking at that next phase around the improvement journey. We are having discussions with the department around potential sort of exit or options around intervention, and I'll probably be able to advise councillors in the coming weeks around that. I think it's timely around considering that, and we've certainly been very well supported by the improvement panel. We have made that commitment cross-party. It's been agreed by full council to extend to at least December. So that will stay regardless, because we've agreed that's a local improvement panel. They work for us. But I do think the department have had a very light touch approach on Peterborough for the last 12 months. They are not overly concerned, but children's services is still a challenge, and we've got an improvement panel in place for that. But we're not complacent, as the leader identified just now. There's still a lot of issues that we need to tackle. But if I'm honest, so is every other council at the moment with the current landscape. So there's nothing unique here. We just now need to crack on, and I think it's timely that we do start to have those conversations, and I have had a conversation last week with the department around that.
Okay, Councillor Hogg, did you have any supplementary questions?
I do have a brief supplementary. Okay. I'd just like to recognise the hard work that all officers from the top to the bottom of the organisation have put in to delivering these kind of changes. And I would certainly urge my colleagues, councillors across the chamber, we've got the staffing awards coming up, and please do think about those council officers that you identify as being, gone that extra mile, because I think it's really important that we recognise the hard work that our council officers put in. Thank you.
Anybody want to respond to that? No? Okay. Yeah.
Just very much support that. This has been a culture change across the organisation for the last 2 years. Really welcome the recognition, credit, respect for councillors, officers. This has been a collective team effort, if I'm really honest, and I think it's really good. This is the second year we're doing the staff awards. It went down really well in terms of morale, and I really would encourage as many people as possible to put submissions forward. I think we got more already compared to what we had last year. I'd welcome all councillors to attend that staff award session. More than happy if you wanted to give out awards, it's fine, but I think it's really good for us to really celebrate the successes of what this council and what Peterborough is achieving. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So now move to Councillor Jones, Councillor D. Jones.
D. Jones, thank you, Mr. D here. If we stop and think about what matters, it can usually be pared back to two fundamentals that are important to all of us: recognition and reward. Reward perhaps speaks for itself. Rarely do any of us do anything for nothing. Reward is our wage or allowance that allows us to function in the modern world. How much reward we receive and how we manage it is a matter for debate. As politicians of different political persuasions, we have our own views of how that reward is given, how it's allocated, and the amount that we receive. Recognition is different. Volunteers, for instance, give of their time, sometimes dipping into their own financial resources to give or to support others without any expectation or need for reward. This report isn't about reward. What we see here is the recognition that individually and collectively we've pulled together worked together and all together voted unanimously for a balanced budget. The recognition for my group is at the improvement panel to put into writing how well we have done so far. And in doing so, recognising there is still a challenging game to be won to keep the people of Peterborough, whom we were all elected to represent, and our city solvent, safe and masters of our own destiny. The report is therefore welcome for those two reasons. Recognition of the distance we've travelled since 2021 and recognising that the road ahead is a bit like many roads across the city and indeed the country, potholed and care needed to navigate it. I'm pleased to receive such recognition, and it's my profound wish that in these challenging times we all continue to rise above the worst excesses of party politics for the betterment of our city we all call home, no matter where we started our respective journeys to get here. I also hope that the electorate will bear this in mind at the forthcoming local and national elections by asking challenging questions of all of us about where we've been, where we are now, and most importantly, where we are going. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. I think that was more of a comment, so I don't know if you don't need to respond to that. Thank you very much, Councillor Jones. It was a comment as well. Councillor Mohammed Jamil.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to ask a question on reserves, but I think the answer's already been given. However, I will ask around paragraph 4.2.3, the electoral arrangements. Now, we've always had, 1/3 every year. Now, it seems to be that we're being pushed into having, where we're all out and then nothing for 4 years. Now, I'm still yet to be convinced that that is a better system or will produce better or more stability. So why is it that we're being pushed that way? Because it seems to be the advice seems to be going that way. And if we don't want to, would that count against us?
Thank you, Councillor Jamil. Alana, would you like to respond to that?
Thank you. If you don't want to, it would not count against you. It's been a long-standing recommendation from the first governance reviews and reports into Peterborough City Council that were done that asked for a local authority that's been no overall control for a considerable period of time to consider their electoral arrangements. You did consider it. You voted against it. The panel continued to recommend that what you said at that time was that you would come back to that decision and reconsider it again, and that's all you've been asked to do. You're not being pressed to take a decision to move to all-out elections. You're being asked to adhere to your commitment to reconsider the matter after the local elections in May. And so therefore it continues to be the panel's view that in the light of the local elections in May, for the council to reconsider and bring back the consideration of all our elections. And it's perfectly plausible and feasible that the council will reconsider and continue to stay as they are in 1/3, and that's perfectly reasonable for the council to do.
Thank you. Do you have a supplementary, Councillor Jamil?
No, thank you. I'm reassured.
Okay, so thank you. And now move to Councillor Heather Skipstead.
I was actually going to ask the same question, but I would like to just ask if the panel know whether the government would be likely to impose all-out elections, even if we vote against that. Is there any knowledge on that? Is that likely to happen? Thank you.
Who's going to speak on behalf of the government? Eleanor.
Well, I'm lost for words in terms of whether I'd actually want to speak on behalf of the government, this government or any government, to be perfectly honest. No, we have absolutely no knowledge or belief that there are any plans or any sort of like considerations by civil servants to put recommendations forward to ministers to impose all-out elections on any local authority. And as the Chief Executive said, DLUC are looking very favourably on Peterborough City Council and the progress that they have made. And so therefore, when they're thinking of intervention or whether they're thinking of putting forward recommendations to impose anything on any local authority, Peterborough, in our view, and to our knowledge, is not on any list, and any current list that DLUC may have for intervention or further imposition on the City Council.
Thank you. Councillor Skipstead, are you happy with that one?
That's fine, thank you.
Thanks. Move to Councillor Andy Coles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you very much for the opportunity to address the report. I think, for me, reflecting on the 2 years that we've had, incredibly difficult experience, we've had a very great deal of learning about how to get ourselves out of financial difficulty. I'm just wondering whether the learning that we've had here is something that you promulgate further to the almost 1/5 of the councils around the country that are now facing similar or even more challenging difficulties. Thank you.
Yeah, Alan, or is it Chief Executive?
Yeah. No, Councillor Coles, it's a very good question. We are heavily involved in Solace, LGA programmes. Some of the stuff that we've done here is leading the way in terms of some of the budget consultation, engagement, the medium-term financial plans. We are feeding in around the improvement assurance work. We have helped with government around the best value framework, and we've adopted that locally, and I'm expecting that to come out very shortly from government, and I think we've had a good engagement session with councillors on that area. I'm also encouraging all councillors to think about whether they want to do a peer review. They are fundamentally overhauling the LGA process, and I think it's timely that some councillors should get involved in that to learn and to share the good work that we've been putting in place. I'm now mentoring one or two other places in terms of support. I know Cecilia is as well. So there's a lot of work underway which I think is helpful, and we are sharing that, and I know the panel share it quite widely. I've got a phone call with the new Chief Exec at the LGA coming up because they want to hear about what work we put in place across Peterborough. Those phone calls were not being had 2 years ago, if I'm honest. So it feels a very different culture, tone and style. And the conversations we have with DLUC, going back to the earlier question, extremely positive, very constructive, and we have tapped into support in all shapes and sizes over the last 2 years. And I think, that will continue if we need it.
Thank you. Councillor Coles, do you have any supplementary question? No. Okay, does anybody else have any questions or comments? Councillor Chris Wiggin, and then Councillor Fitzgerald, and then Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So section 4.2.2 of the report details the political situation and the changes that have taken place over the last year, and the panel observations are there. Given we've got elections coming up in a few weeks, it is almost certain we will be back in an overall control situation. Is there anything different you would like to see from us as members when we're looking at forming a next administration, whoever that might be, whatever the permutations are on that, and anything we need to change from how it was worked before?
Right, who'd like to respond to that?
I'll go first, and in a very broad sense, I would say it's not for the panel or officers to tell members or to advise members on how to conduct administrations or alliances. What I would say in relation to Peterborough City Council is, regardless of any outcome of the May elections, if you continue to work in the collaborative and collegiate way that you have over the last 2.5 years, then whatever the shape of the council and whatever the outcome of the elections, you'll continue to do what you have been doing for the last 2.5 years, which is to do your very best to put the interests of the City Council and all of its communities at the heart of what you do. So I think that you are to be commended, and in answer to the earlier question that Matt answered, I think people are looking to Peterborough to see what you have done, how you've managed to achieve what you have achieved. And it isn't just about the work that's gone in on the Financial Sustainability Working Group or the Financial Sustainability work and the budgets and the hard work that's gone in to savings and so forth. It really does go to the heart of the respect between members and officers and between political parties and the way that you've all worked together. It really is to be commended. So if you carry on working in that way, whatever the outcome of the May elections, then you're setting fair, as we've said in the conclusion to the report, to continue to be vital for the City Council to achieve its ultimate aspiration of excellence for the people of Peterborough. And I think you all demonstrate that that's what you've got at the heart of what you're trying to do.
Thank you. I think the Chief Executive wanted to comment.
I think just a couple of comments, really. The panel will say back to me, the first 2 years has been hard graft, excellent collaboration. There are lots of councils across the country who are no overall control, but actually that demands a really good collaboration, mutual respect and teamwork. My advice is lift our heads up a bit more and seize the opportunity, be longer term in our thinking. And I know we've had a debate around elections. Yeah, there'll be elections and we'll get through that. But I was with Ross Renton from the university earlier today. We were at a parliamentary reception on Monday. There are loads and loads of plans, opportunities. We still have challenges around children's. We need to do more around care leavers. We've had a really good debate. So I think collectively, what's the real ambition? And you've all in this chamber have got a real key role around that leadership at a local level and at a place level within the city. And I think we need to get clearer on what our priorities are and how we really want to see what's important over the next few years and delivering that and seizing those opportunities. That would be my advice, is that strategic, longer term thinking and a real drive, and there are some phenomenally exciting plans coming through.
Thank you. Councillor Wigan, do you have any supplementary question?
No, just to thank you both for the answers and to praise the ongoing work of all members and officers who are contributing to the cross-party collaboration. It's good to see the Financial Sustainability Working Group, which I'm a member of, continuing under the new administration, as it had done under the previous one, and that all parties are still participating in that in the way it was intended. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fitzgerald is the next speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll remain seated on this one because they're mainly comments, and if Eleanor wants to reply on that, that's all well and good. Now, look, as a former leader in the 2 years of the administration that I did bring everybody together collaboratively, your words, not mine. So I will take that credit and praise. But Matt, you're kidding yourself if you think the last 6 months has been collegiate and collaborative. Eleanor, I don't agree with your first point. The new leader in Cabinet have found ways to work well and win support from the opposition groups in relation to key decisions. I would suggest you add the word some in there, because they certainly don't have the support of this group, that's for sure. And the unnecessary coup, which officers advised them strongly not to do 6 months ago, has caused that rift, particularly with opposition parties such as the Liberal Democrats, Labour, the Greens and others, to the point where there is a serious rift there. So to suggest that we are one team is ridiculous. It is literally ridiculous. I'll speak, and other members of my group can confirm the same thing. That's how we all feel. So there is no collaboration or collegiate
Councillor
responsibility.
Shabina Kayem, what type of point do you wish to raise?
I'd like to raise a point of accuracy, please, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask Councillor Fitzgerald where his evidence is that opposition parties have a rift amongst each other, and to evidence it from a documental point of view. Thank you.
Hang on a minute. Hands up, group, if you feel there's a rift between us and the administration and opposition parties. That's what she just said. Where's the evidence?
Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, she's misinterpreting what I said.
Councillor Kayem, could you perhaps clarify what your point
exactly.
is again?
No idea.
Absolutely. It came across that Councillor Fitzgerald had made the point that opposition parties had rifts with each other. And he specifically named the Green Party, the Liberal Democrats and the Labour Party.
No, sorry, you're misunderstanding. The Conservative Party have a rift with all of you now, which wasn't present. And that's been caused...
The onus would be upon you, Councillor Fitzgerald, if you have a rift. You and your party have a rift with the opposition parties. Thank you.
Why does you made your point? Can we just get a bit of order here? Councillor Kayem's raised her point of accuracy. Councillor Fitzgerald, you can respond to it if you want to.
She constantly interrupts. It's a trait with her. She just loves the limelight.
Point of accuracy, Mr. Mayor. Point of accuracy, Mr. Mayor. point of order, Mr. Mayor. I'm finding point of order, Mr. Mayor. I find Councillor Fitzgerald's manner and conduct within this meeting is incredibly derogatory. I'd like to please table a motion that asks him to apologise for that very personal comment that he has made. Thank you.
Just take a bite.
I'll apologise when Councillor Hiller does.
So just wait a second, it's going to take legal.
What have I said?
Okay, we're just going to pause for a couple of moments.
She likes the limelight, is that true or not? Apologise for what, Mayor?
Could you just clarify, Councillor Kyan, what the motion is that you want to move, and we'll just check whether it's in order for you to move?
I would like Councillor Fitzgerald to apologise for his wording towards me. Incredibly personal to say that I always want the limelight. And always interrupt.
Councillor Fitzgerald, are you happy to apologise?
If she's offended, I'm happy to apologise, but it doesn't mean I can't think it.
Okay. I think then we'll take it that Councillor Fitzgerald is happy to apologise if he's caused you any offence.
Can we move on there, please?
I'd just like to make a point of order here. I'd like to move a motion that we remove Councillor Fitzgerald from the chamber because of his very unwilling apology. Thank you.
All right, I think it's... We're just going to hold fire until we've checked. I think you're moving that Councillor...
That's up to you, Mayor.
To explain, there's a number of procedural motions that you can move. We just need to check whether that is one of them. Okay. Councillor Hogg, what are you raising a point?
I am raising the point. The
what
point
is it? Point of accuracy, point of order?
At the moment, we're looking
Sorry,
to
can
see...
you tell me what type of point it is, Councillor Hogg?
It's a point of order insofar as we're currently looking to see if this is allowed or not allowed, but we've suspended standing orders, so standing orders does not apply.
No, sorry, we've suspended the standing... Sorry, go on, you explain it.
Councillor Hogg, we've suspended Standing Order 16.11, which relates to the ability for officers to speak. That's the only standing order which has been suspended, just to be clear.
Yeah. Thank you for the clarification.
So just to clarify, all the other standing orders apply. Councillor Elsey, what type of point are you raising?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a point of information.
So there is no such thing. Is it a point of accuracy?
Okay,
a point
it's
of
a point
order,
of accuracy then.
Right.
You're asking if Councillor Khayyam, you're seeking advice if Councillor Khayyam's motion is possible. I refer you back to occasions where Councillor Ed Murphy and others have been made to leave the chamber. So it clearly has been in the past.
Yeah, we're just going to... The legal officer is just checking the standing order, so if we could just wait a
Thank you, Chair. So in relation to the...
Could we listen to the legal officer, please?
In relation to the first motion, in relation to the apology, I think that's been dealt with, but just to clarify, I don't think that falls within the criteria of a motion without notice, asking for an apology, but that's been dealt with, I believe, anyway. In relation to the second motion, which is to ask for the removal, that could be covered, if that is what you're asking for. However, that's more the discretion of the chair to deal with that, as to whether... So, in the first instance, it would be appropriate for the chair to give a view.
Okay, can I... It is at my discretion whether I allow it. Councillor Khayyam, we've had a very good meeting up to this point, and Councillor Fitzgerald has acknowledged that you may have been offended by something that he said, and he's apologised for that. So, could I ask, can we just proceed with the motion, with the meeting? Councillor Harper, what type of point do you...
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. I'm just reading what he's put on our desk here, so I don't know if that helps clarify the situation. Am I allowed to say that point of accuracy?
Yes, it's a point of order if you're referring to the standing orders. Go.
Okay, point of order. I'm just reading it here. I don't know if it will help, and it says here that should a member behave inappropriately or offensively, a member can move that the member be not heard further. If seconded, the motion will be voted on without discussion.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm not denying that it's a motion. What I'm saying is that a discretion of the chair, a view of the chair as to the behaviour, who does have conduct, who is the chair of the meeting. It can be put forward, but it's usually helpful to have a view of the chair, particularly if it involves removing a member from the chamber.
I'm not going there. I'm just this is what it says.
Okay. Can I just ask, do you really want to pursue this? Because if you want to pursue it, I will permit it, just so that we can get on. Do you want to pursue it?
Mr. Mayor, now seeing I'm in the limelight, I would like to pursue it.
Right,
Thank you.
okay. So which procedural motion are you moving? Are you moving that he be no longer heard or that he be removed from the chamber?
That he is no longer heard. Thank you.
He's no longer. Right, okay, there is no provision for debate on the motion. We now go straight to the vote. So can I ask... Okay, yeah, it's really regrettable that we're having to do this, but so Councillor Kyan, would you like to propose your motion that Councillor Fitzgerald be no longer heard? Thank you.
Yes, I would. I'd like to propose the motion. I'd like a seconder.
What type of point are you raising?
Just point of order, really. Just I don't know whether as a leader I could say this or whether I can just say it as a point of order. This is a final meeting of the council. Perhaps if Councillor Fitzgerald is apologising, I request Councillor Shabina Qayyum respectfully, perhaps let's carry on, let's not remove anybody, let's go forward, and let's finish off the meeting. We have guests from outside. This council has conducted very well over the last few months, last 6 months. Please, can we just forgive on this occasion?
Okay, Councillor Shahid, what type of point are you raising?
I believe it might be a point of order, but I'm not sure, to be honest with you. But you said about removed, whereas it's not heard, was what Councillor Harper mentioned before. Is it removed or not heard?
Councillor Kyan has said it's that Councillor Fitzgerald be no longer heard. Can I ask, is there a seconder for that proposal?
So, would it be helpful for me to clarify what that
Yeah, if you could clarify.
So there is a difference. Being removed from the chamber is physically being removed from the chamber. Being not heard means that there is one remaining item, which will mean that Councillor Fitzgerald will be unable to speak on that item. That's the effect of the motion. He will remain in the room, but he will not be able to speak on that item. And I believe, and Councillor Kayam, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that what you're asking for is a motion for him not to be heard on the next item. Is that right?
Yes, please.
Thank you for...
Councillor Farouk, what type of point have you got?
Again, point of order. Mr Mayor, I made a request and I just wanted an answer from Councillor Qayyum before we go on to the next bit.
Really want to pursue this?
I'm happy to accommodate Councillor Farouk's request if we can stick.
Okay, I think that would be wise. So I'm taking that you're not going to move that motion. So can we now proceed with what I thought was quite a good...
Mr Mayor, I'd like us to vote on the motion, but I'm willing to accommodate.
Right, okay, can I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Jamil, do you wish to second the motion now or reserve your right to speak later on?
I will reserve my right.
Right, if there's any other speakers in the debate, no other speakers that I'm seeing. So, Councillor Jamil, would you like to exercise your right to speak?
No, Mr Mayor, I think we should just go to vote.
Councillor Kyan, would you like to summate on the motion?
No, thank you. We can
Right,
proceed to
I
the
now
vote.
ask the Head of Constitutional Service to proceed with the vote, please.
Members, we've got a problem with the electronic system, so we're going to need to raise hands on this one, okay? So all those in favour, please, of Councillor Qayyum's motion. And we're going to have to count, so please bear with us. Okay. All those against, please, can you raise your hands? Yep. Any abstentions? 2. We just need to check. Okay, thank you, members. That we've got 33 in favour, we've got 22 against, there was 2 abstentions, therefore that is agreed.
Okay, so the councillors agreed that Councillor Fitzgerald will be no longer heard. Could I just ask the legal officer to clarify what the impact of that is, what has to happen?
That's the next item, Mr Mayor, not the current one, presumably.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr Mayor. So we have one further item for a decision. In essence, that will mean that Councillor Fitzgerald will be unable to speak on that item. That's the effect of that.
But we're halfway through this one, Mr Mayor, so if I may, I'll finish. If I may, I'll finish. That is correct, isn't it?
Sorry, I just thought if you commit, you can't be heard on this one.
The effect of the motion is that it takes effect immediately, so wherever we are...
That's absolutely fine, but again, my limelight comment has proven to be true, and I won't withdraw it.
Sorry, a point of order, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Carry on.
Sorry.
What standing order does your point of order relate to?
I just think that when the monitoring officer has said that this has been resolved in forms of an apology, that is not an apology. This is absolutely disgusting behaviour.
Sorry, Councillor Allen, Councillor Cairn, that's your opinion. Right, sorry, Councillor Foresti, what type of point do you have?
It's a point of information.
Just be quiet, please, so we can listen to Councillor Soresti's point.
I don't know whether this is the right question or the place to ask it, or where I'm going to get an answer. But as far as I'm aware, Councillor Fitzgerald...
What type of point is it? Is it
a point of clarification.
Is it a point of accuracy, a point of personal explanation, or a point of order?
It's a point of order.
A point of order, right. Standing order does it relate to?
As far as I'm aware, Councillor Fitzgerald may have said something that offended another councillor. Councillor Fitzgerald then apologised, which was accepted. Now, at what point do we hang people in this country when they've apologised and have shown and said sorry for what they've done? Because that's exactly what we're doing in here.
We're not talking about hanging anybody.
Mr.
Can the legal officer respond to that point?
Councillor Soresti, can I deal with that point that you've raised?
Could you sit down and listen to the response, please? Councillor Soresti, you have raised the point and the legal officer is going to respond to it. Please, could you listen to the response?
The motion which was passed was not in relation to the first point about the apology. That was dealt with. The motion was in relation to not being heard. It was a separate point.
Sorry, okay, you've made your point. Councillor Soresti, could you either sit down or leave or do whatever you're going to do, but could you do it quietly, please?
The position in the Constitution is that if a motion is put forward, if it's seconded, it should be voted on.
We're now going to... Any members leaving, could they leave quietly, please, and not have conversations in the chamber? Right, I've got one further speaker, Councillor Allen. Would you like to make your contribution or question or whatever?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and the shenanigans we've just encountered perhaps takes away some of the points that I was going to make, or maybe even enforces them. And I was going to say that the Improvement Panel's optimistic report based on political cooperation is uplifting. But today, this evening, we've now seen that political cooperation is destroyed by this infighting that we have. I think that the sterling work that's done by officers, CLT and councillors, emphasise that, and councillors, brought about by the initiation of the Financial Sustainability Working Group, which was set in train by the last leader, the leader of the Conservative group, was working well. And I think that anybody who thinks that the new administration has brought about cooperation is wrong, because what we have, or what we had, was a form of cooperation. Don't please take this unanimous major achievement of the budget being approved. That was because it was a Conservative budget which we were happy to continue to agree to. Going forward, I think what we have to see is councillors across the chamber respecting electoral outcomes, and that is the secret of cooperation. Anyway, that's my point there. And looking at the electoral arrangements, I think that we must be honest and consider that any decision we make on that, any party in this chamber, will be opportunistic, depending on how it will do you in the future going forward. So if you think you've got a good chance of retaining power with a good majority, you'll vote for it. If you think you're going to be not in majority, you won't vote for it. So I'm sure Eleanor will recognise that. And I must apologise to you for what you've seen here this evening. It doesn't bode well for future cooperation. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Does anybody wish to respond to that or not? Okay, Councillor, so you guys don't want to respond to his comment at all? No. Yeah, Alan, I think.
Can I just say that the panel's report does actually reflect on all of the work for the last 2.5 years, and it is not a reflection of the last 6 months. But I think that the decisions taken in the budget decision, being unanimous, reflected across all of the groups, that they all reflected on all the work that everybody had put in. And that's how you got to a unanimous decision. And it's important for people to remember that they have to move forward in that same spirit. Otherwise, the challenges that face Peterborough City Council, which are common to all local authorities, you're running with the pack in relation to the challenges that you have, but the challenges are immense, and you won't overcome those challenges if you allow the sort of fracturing of the work that you've put in so far to allow that to be fractured for whatever reasons. But the work of the last 2.5 years, regardless of the administration, has been fundamentally valuable and important, and has reached you to the point where you are now. And as Matt said earlier, the conversations are already taking place about moving out from any intervention observation by DLUC. That won't happen. That moving away from that intervention won't happen if DLUC are observing the council chamber tonight.
Okay, Councillor Allen, are you happy with that response, or do you got a supplementary question? Or?
I am indeed happy with it, and I think it summed things up very well, Eleanor. Thank you.
Perhaps you'd relay it to your colleagues when you next see them, perhaps. Okay. Councillor Alsey, you've got a question.
No, I don't have a question. Mr. Mayor, you asked if anybody wished to respond to Councillor Allen, so I put my hand up.
I think you've already spoken, but given the fact we're doing an informal question and answer, I'll allow you to ask another question.
Thank you very much for your indulgence, Mr. Mayor.
I still want to speak.
Sorry, Councillor Alsey wants to ask a question first. So.
No, I don't.
Okay.
All I would say is that I have some sympathy with what Councillor Allen said. However, respect goes further than an electoral decision. Respect goes towards your fellow councillors, and politics is a bruising business, and you don't necessarily always like the decisions that come out of it, but that doesn't mean that you have to spill vitriol and bile in the chamber towards your fellow councillors. And unfortunately, Councillor Allen, that is only coming from one place.
You're not addressing Councillor Allen, you're addressing me. Could you speak to the chair, please?
Unfortunately, Mr. Mayor, that only comes from one place in this chamber. And it's unfortunate we've extended our hand, and Councillor Fitzgerald stood up in this meeting and said, we are adamant we will not work with the administration or the other groups. So I have some sympathy with what Councillor Allen says. We're all generally reasonable people, but the tarnish on this chamber at this moment in time is coming from one place. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, does that need a response, Jimmy? Or, no, okay. Right, Councillor Hogg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the indulgence of allowing me to speak again. These are quite extraordinary circumstances that we find ourselves in, and I must apologise for the behaviour that has been exhibited tonight. I think it's really important to stress that the cooperation across the chamber, not left, right, but across the parties, has definitely increased in the last 4 months. We've seen a new administration that has opened up the doors further than has ever been achieved before, and various opposition parties have been able to help support the administration in various roles, with directorships and work on combined authority bodies, which has helped bind those parties together, because there's been a new realisation of cooperation. It saddens me to see that the Conservative group is not coming across with the same level of cooperation that the other parties, but it's understandable. I understand why they are taking the position that they have taken. I only hope that once we get through the election period, it tends to be a bit more feisty, shall we say, over the election period. I would hope that once the election is over and done with, we can see a turning of the corner. And certainly from my point of view, that door will be wide open for the Conservatives to rejoin and that collegiate feel, so that we can work forward, specifically next year as we don't have local elections, that I would like to see the Conservatives, play a proper part in making sure that this council does the work that it needs to do, so that our residents get the value for money that they deserve. Thank you.
Any need to respond to that? No? Okay. Councillor Alison Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think, to be fair, what we've seen tonight actually is very sad, and I would like to sort of say that having sat in the council chambers now for nearly 2 years, in the last 6 months, obviously some of the comments that have been made by Councillor Fitzgerald and said have not been acceptable in terms of the dignity and respect that we would expect fellow councillors to treat each other. And I suppose tonight is that, sadly, we have, guests, and I'm sorry that you've had to see that, but sometimes enough is enough, and I think tonight was sadly the straw that broke the camel's back, and hopefully from now on here we will be able to speak to the Councillor Fitzgerald and the council and the Conservative group to bring things back to a level playing field where we actually all work better together. Like you said, we have been, and there has been that goodwill that's been going on, and it's very disappointing and very sad that that's where we are tonight. As all professionals councillors.
Okay, thank you. Any response from that? Okay. Councillor Jamil, you've already spoken, but I'll let you ask another one.
Thank you very much. Much of what I wanted to say, Councillor Hogg has already said. But with Helena, I as a Labour councillor, will give credit to Councillor Fitzgerald. When he took over as leader, he was more open and understanding towards us. I sat on what was the precursor to the financial group that we've got, and it was never, we never got the kind of information that we got. So I am saying that, what he did, he did well. But the constant sniping, it wasn't the start. I remember the first meeting when we had a new administration, the comments he made towards the leader, the way he behaved in some of the scrutiny groups. We are all governed by the Nolan principles, and I think sometimes some people in this chamber forget that. It's just the basic respect for each other, and I think today he went as far as he's done before, but no one's ever pulled him up on it. And I don't know. I'm kind of hoping he'll reflect from it, knowing the kind of person he is. I'm hoping he will. But the thing is that we agreed to work with the administration. We're not in alliance with them. We work on issues, we work on motions, we worked for the betterment of the people, the residents of this city, and that's what we deserve. And I think we've done that, and I think that's reflective in the report today. If you see the report and read it, it says they were, your group were hesitant at start when you see 11 people in charge, but we've managed to get over that. But the problem was there is one group, maybe one person, who seems to want to hold it back because he's never got over the process of not being leader anymore. And I think the sooner he sees that, the sooner we can turn this city round and go to places that, Mike, that you've talked about. We are, we're an oyster, we're a rough diamond, and when we're chiseled, we're going to be brilliant.
Thank you, Councillor Jamil. I actually recall Councillor Fitzgerald's first meeting was held in the cathedral, and I thought peace and harmony had broken out across the council. But okay, Councillor Hemraj.
Hi, I just wanted to say that I got elected in 2018, and it's my second term. I've noticed a difference in 6 years. When I first became a councillor, it was really difficult, and some of the comments that I had faced from opposition was, especially from the leader, was quite patronising and frustrating. I have worked well with my opposition councillor in the ward, and I have worked well with a couple of other opposition councillors. But I could say since Peterborough first came in, I found there's a much better working together, and I really hope that would carry on. I do feel sad for Councillor Fitzgerald's behaviour for
Councillor
tonight.
Fox,
that
what
didn't
type
have
of
to
point have
happen.
you got?
Thank you.
I think. Sorry, did you want to conclude, Councillor Hemraj? Okay. So we've now got Councillor John Fox, which wishes to speak.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can say safely, with my hand on my heart, in 22 years as a councillor, I've never known the opposition groups to work so closely together. We've become friends. And that's what the public want. They don't want to see all this behaviour. They want to see all groups working together for a common cause. And the common cause is this city. And that tonight, to me, was an embarrassment. An embarrassment. It really was. And we've got to carry on. We can't let that affect us. We've got to carry on working together for the good of this city. Because we can't have this sort of behaviour. We have a code of conduct. We have principles, the Nolan principles. And what we've done tonight, we've actually gone, that's ridiculous. People want to realise what we're here for.
Thank you, Councillor Fox. Councillor Amjad Iqbal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was not minded to speak, but I think I need to say something. Firstly, I'd like to apologise, Eleanor, on behalf of everyone. Wayne Fitzgerald's behaviour is normal. It's normal practice. It's nothing new. I'm sure you've seen him before in that way. But I just wanted to reassure you that the way he reacts, the more stronger we get. The way he reacts, the more stronger we get, the more unity we form amongst us. So his behaviour, his attitude will have no impact on us. We had a very good meeting today. Obviously, what I've noted that if there's no praise about him, then it's not acceptable. If there's a praise about him, you encourage him, you appreciate him, then it's acceptable. And I've been a councillor since 2016, and I could like to make a reference where he asked Councillor Hemraj to apologise. Councillor Fitzgerald did. And he said, if you do not apologise, I will ask you to leave this chamber. Yes, and this is sort of a behaviour, this is sort of a culture that he has given us. And when it comes to him, it's not acceptable. But again, we want to work for the best of the people of Peterborough. That's why we're sitting here. And I do apologise. And unity is there. As far as we're concerned, Peterborough First have got our support all the way. Thank you.
Right, okay. I'm just conscious we're not here to debate Councillor Fitzgerald's conduct or anything. We're here to debate the report put forward by the independent panel. So unless anybody's got any burning other questions, I'd just like to move to the procedural stuff. So it is requested that we consider the report and any actions that we wish to take, and we request the Growth, Resource and Community Scrutiny Committee to review the report. So, Councillor Howard, you reserved your right to speak. Would you like to say anything in seconding the proposal?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, if I may.
Yeah.
I won't touch much on the behaviour, but I will, to contribute to it for a start, say, before I'm a councillor, I'm a dad, I'm a husband, and when people use words in the chamber such as amnesia, cancer, freak show, do I want my children, do I want my wife seeing that on the live feed? And the answer is no. And it's not even about a political choice, it's about individual behaviour. You don't have to be of any political persuasion to use unacceptable language like this in the chamber. And it's time we have a more mature politics. I know in the Conservative group, the current leader is a smaller voice, and sensible and more moderate voices will come through. And the good will come out of that group, and I know it will, because it's not about a Conservative group, it is about individuals and the choices they make. And it's one of the reasons I'm not sitting in that group at the moment. But there you go. But I think to credit, it's a real shame they're not here. One, for the councillors who are, this is their last meeting. I would dearly like to see them in the chamber hearing the good work, because it's not just about what's happened in the last few months. You know, this is a legacy of the last few years. And over those last few years, everyone has worked really hard to overcome political differences, vision differences, to deliver sustainable budgets, to make tough decisions, and to credit the Councillor Fitzgerald and the Conservative group who piloted the Financial Sustainability Working Group. And it's exactly why we carried it on, because it was a good success and it had everyone working together. And I just think it's really sad that everyone's not here to listen to the debate, which hopefully should have been about the report, and acknowledge the good work in the report. But I think, with a degree of optimism, I think what we've proved the last few months is consensus politics can work, and consensus politics is about the city, which is what we're all here to do. And most of us, and I don't mean most of us as in the left side of the chamber, I will include people in the right side of the chamber, and some of them may be other silent ones who just sit there, but really care about the city, really care about where we're going. You know, there's political group AGMs to come, and I hope the truth will come out and the good will come forward. And I hope, following May, no matter the political proportionality, everyone continues to work together with the interests of the city before any of their own individual egos. And that's what we all need, and that's what the city deserves. So I look forward to contributing towards that in whatever way I can. And I'm sorry again for the behaviour and the outcome of tonight. It's really sad to see.
Thank you, Councillor Howard. Councillor Farouk, would you like to summate on the motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Quite a sombre moment. Eleanor, I must apologise. We've had very good council meetings, and although the language and the behaviour, we could talk about it until the cows come home, but what we need to look at ourselves is that we are politicians. We must develop thick skins. Nobody's been called more names than I have, and you have to tolerate that. And what you need to do is you must always concentrate on the core objectives, and the core objectives are to deliver best for the residents of this city. And once we emphasise on that, and once we concentrate on that, then almost everything else becomes irrelevant. But Eleanor, it has been a pleasure attending and working with you on the improvement panel, and taking your rationale and concise decision, your concise advice, yourself, Andrew, Chris, and all the panel members and the officers. It has been very valuable. I, for one, am considerably in a different position than where I was earlier. Far as our group is concerned, and our other collaborative partners are concerned, we commit to working collaboratively through transparency and openness. We will always concentrate on our core objectives, and we will deliver best for the residents. But beyond that, what we must not lose the sight of is that we have huge potential. We are going to UK Reef promoting, we have already publicised the prospectuses. We got huge potential of increasing the income considerably for this council, and once we have that, then we are able to go on to protect our vulnerable children. The more income we have, the more ability we have to deliver services to our deprived areas. And it is particularly sad for me because I wanted to say goodbye to many of those friends whose this council meeting was their last meeting, and I would ask Chief Executive, in fact, if you can text them and please ask them to come back. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Farouk. So the proposition is we ask Cabinet to consider the report and also the Growth, Resources and Communities Committee. So is that agreed? Agreed, thank you. I am going to use my discretion not to have a break because I think we've only got two possibly fairly brief items coming up, and so we'll just carry on, I think, if that's what members want to see. Right, so we move to agenda item 13B, appointment of the monitoring officer. Councillor Alison-Jones, would you like to move the recommendations?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, I would. In accordance with Section 5 of the Local Government and Housing Act 1989, every local authority must designate one of their officers as the monitoring officer. The formal approach of the appointment of the council's monitoring officer is a decision reserved for full council. The duties relating to the monitoring officer currently fall under the remit of the post of Director of Legal and Governance. On the 11th of March, the Employment Committee appointed Neil MacArthur to the role of Director of Legal and Governance and agreed to recommend to Council that Neil should be formally appointed as Monitoring Officer for the Council. There are full words clearly set out in our pack tonight, so I don't really think I need to go through all of that. But I would say that with his experience that he brings, that he will be a valuable asset to the Council. And therefore, I ask you to accept this recommendation and request that the Council now approves the appointment of Neil MacArthur as the Council's Monitoring Officer. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Mohammed Farouk, will you second the recommendation, either speak now or reserve your right to speak later?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Happy to second it and reserve my right to speak later.
Can I call upon any other speakers? Councillor Hogg.
This kind of relates to this item. I just want to say thank you very much for Adesua for all her hard work, and that essentially we are really quite gutted that you're leaving. I'm sure Neil will find it very hard shoes to fill, but I'm sure he'll do his best. Yes, we are sad to see you go, and thank you very much for your service.
Thank you. I'd just like to add my thanks to Adesua for the service that she's given to us. Councillor Wiggins.
I'd like to endorse what yourself, Mr Mayor, and Councillor Hogg just said about the great work Adesua has done. I'd also like to thank the Employment Committee. It was a really good session where we reviewed this appointment, and it's an example of how well we do work together collaboratively in the Council. Thank you.
Okay, so any other speakers? No. Councillor Farouk, or shall we just take it as agreed? Is that agreed? Okay, thank you. Let's move on. Right, so we now move to agenda item 13C, annual pay policy statement. Councillor Howard, would you like to move the recommendations?
Thank you. For you, Mr Mayor, I would. And I've got a little blurb, if you'd like to hear it.
If you've got a blurb you want to give us, we're happy to hear it.
So if there's anyone left, I will tell you my blurb. Here we go. So the Localism Act 2011 requires that the Council approves a pay policy statement that sets out the authority's policies for the financial year relating to the remuneration of its chief officers, the remuneration of its lowest paid employees, and the relationship between the remuneration of its chief officers and the remuneration, how many times can we put that in, of its employees who are not chief officers. The Act contains specific items that must be included in the pay policy, and the statement recommended to Council is compliant with these requirements. When determining the relationship in remuneration, the median salary, which is where the full-time equivalent salaries of every employee are listed in order of value, and the value of the employee in the middle is used, and also the mean salary. This is where the full-time equivalent salary package of every employee are added together and then divided by the total number of employees are used. Between January 23, January 24, the median salary in the Council increased from £34,723 to £36,648. The mean salary also increased from £37,575 to £40,102. The Chief Executive's remuneration is currently 8.36 times the remuneration of the lowest paid employees. This has slightly decreased from last year's figure of 8.5 times, which may be due to a decrease in the quantity of staff in the lower pay bands. The average of the lowest salaries increased from £21,143 to £23,528. In 2023, there were 38 people earning between £15,000 to £19,999, whereas in 2024, this figure had reduced to 4 people earning between £15,000 to £19,999, meaning there are less people in the lower pay brackets. The increase in mean and median salaries, the average salary, and the reduction of staff on lower grades is all positive news. And thank you, Mr. Mayor, for letting me do my blurb.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice. Councillor Mohammed Farouk, would you like to say, or should we just take it as agreed?
Agreed.
We'll take it as agreed then, thank you. Right, so we now come to the conclusion. As this is the last time I shall be chairing one of these meetings, I would like to thank you all of those of you here, for supporting me. And I do think, just to comment on what happened earlier, I do think it's regrettable when members choose to leave the chamber. You know, we're all here to represent our constituents, so it's only the second time in my time as a councillor I can record that happening, and all I would say is I think it's regrettable. I'd like to go back to the beginning of the meeting and just to wish I'd like to wish luck for everybody standing for re-election. That includes myself, and I also send my good wishes to all those councillors who are standing down, and offer you all our best wishes for the future. So, just finally, I'd like to say to both officers and councillors that the Mayoress has kindly provided some light refreshments in the Mayor's Parlour, and I'd like to invite any member, officer or any member of the public who's here to come along and join us. So in conclusion, just wish you all a safe journey home. And Christian's got a point. Councillor Hogg, you have a point of what?
I want to move a half-hour extent. No. But I would like to just thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the way you've conducted the. I realise that it didn't go according to plan, but I think you kept your cool, and I think you acted with, in the proper way, and I think you should be applauded for the way that you've conducted yourself. I will save further praise for your tenure as our mayor for the annual meeting, which is the normal way. So look forward to a good speech on that one. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hogg. On a positive note, I declare the meeting concluded.